Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of To The Point podcast. Everybody's doing well on this beautiful Tuesday here in New Brunswick as we are back to discuss the premiere of season 3 of Breaking Bad. Episode 1 and episode 2, No Moss, is the title. Episode 1. We have a lot to discuss tonight. It's a lot of different character building moments for our protagonists. We get to introduce to more characters that we kind of learn more about them. We see some really interesting dynamics when it comes to marriage that we'll get into. Jesse going through rehab and everything, and some swindling that I personally loved that we'll talk about in the second episode. But Shay, another beautiful day. You get some sun in St. John, or is it just pure rain today?
Believe it or not, Juggy, we had 2 beautiful days back to back here,
Wow.
and neither one of them I spent on a golf course, but that's okay. I do it for the pod. No, it's good. We had some nice weather over the weekend. We had a couple people over, a couple drinks, and it was a good time. And no, I'm just happy everything works out, especially after that miserable July 1st weekend we had last weekend. So it's nice to see some good weather, and I know if it's nice here, it must be nice up there. So I'm cheering for you.
Yeah, no, 30 degrees today, so I'll take it.
Mhm.
I'll take that every day of the week. But no, beautiful weather, and like you said, I know you had a fun weekend up there, a couple toddies. So that's good to hear. But what'd you make of these 2 episodes? The start, obviously, we start a new season after we see Jane pass away due to an overdose. Well, overdose slash Walter not saving her. And what'd you make of how the creative team of Breaking Bad started the 3rd season?
Really well. Yeah, no, I thought they left a lot hanging, which was good. Just as a short recap, I guess, we kind of had the explosion going on with the airplanes. That was due to Jane's father, Donald, clearly not coming back a little early. And also, Skylar blowing up the lies. You never went to Walter. You never went to see your mother. Gretchen and Elliot didn't pay for your treatments, and the second cell phone. So she knows everything. Everything's on the table, and it seems like they're at split ends when we left the last episode of season 2. And yeah, like you said, Jesse's in rehab, so he's got that going on. Hopefully he's getting better. But yeah, no, 2 great episodes. I think this season, I label this the season of hatred of Skylar White, and that's for good reason. But watching it a second time, I try to see things in better perspective and give a second opinion on things, not just absolutely hate her like I did the first time watching this season. But no, that, like you said, some great new characters, and a little bit of action too, which I love right off the hop in these 2 episodes.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. But yeah, when I first watched, I hated Skylar. I really did. I had such a hatred for her. But watching it again, I really can't blame her. Yes, Walter's doing good by the family, but it's more about ego, as we've talked about on the pod pretty much every episode for him. And it seems to be less and less about money and more about him and status. And there's other ways that you can make money besides selling crystal meth, and it's hard to, with the DEA and just selling crystal meth as a general premise. I mean, that's not a good way to live your life.
No, you could go out and become a professional poker player and maybe make some cash that way for all that matters. He's a smart guy. I'm sure you'd be able to put it together pretty easily.
Yeah, count some cards. Could have watched the movie 21.
Yeah, exactly. Start a
That's
little
not
bank.
exactly legal, but it's, if you ask Alan Gardner, it's just frowned upon. So yeah, that's open to interpretation. But we start season 3, like I said, the episode's called No Moss, and we start in this little Mexican village. It looks like it. We don't really know what's going on. We just see a bunch of people crawling on the ground. And it's kind of this weird, because it's not like they're sneaking out of a place, but they're just all crawling on the ground. People are walking by them, kind of not helping. At first, it kind of looks like a guy's like in pain or been hurt, but he's crawling. And then a Mercedes pulls up, and these 2 bald, very threatening, strong Mexican gentlemen get out. They're in suits. They have these pointed boots on, and they clearly mean business. And they begin to crawl as well, Shay.
The twins, yes,
Twins.
they both the silent type, as you could say,
Hmm.
but we'll get into that later. They also start to crawl. The first time I saw this, I thought, well, they're crawling probably in preparation. Maybe there's some kind of thing where you're getting over the border and you're gonna have to sneak across, and you want to be low. That's the first
Me
first
too.
thing I thought of, because they're wearing padding on their arms and their knees. But that's clearly not the case. And very very quickly, these twins also get down, like you said, they join them, and they're crawling to this like very creepy, I would say not even cabin. It almost looks like a creepy little shed, and it's clearly some kind of, I don't know how you would say it, like,
It's religious of some sort, I
yeah,
thought anyway.
some sort of deep, like, dark religion. And when they get in there, it's covered in candles. There's this kind of makeshift Grim Reaper that sits in the very middle, and the twins are kind of in there, and they kind of pay their respects, and they leave something there beside the Grim Reaper. And I'll let you say what that is.
Yeah, so we know nothing of these twins, but what they do is when they get there, they stick an illustration of Walter, aka Heisenberg, with the hat on, the baldness, the beard, the goatee, on next to the Grim Reaper, and they leave it there.
Yeah.
And it's this sinister message that these two are looking to either hurt Walter because they're in the cartel, we don't really know yet, or get even for some past transgression.
Yeah, the one message that they're sending to me when they do this is that they're looking for the Grim Reaper to help them take away,
Right.
whoever did this. And clearly we know from the season before and the song, the mariachi band song that was played, on the other side of the border, there's a lot of hatred for Heisenberg, not known as Walter White, but Heisenberg, because of his lack of respect for the cartel, and not working for. And we know that he's had past dealings with Tuco, and you got to think that this all kind of relates. But like you said, we have no idea at this point. It just seems like two guys are out for Heisenberg, not Walter yet.
Yeah, so we know Walter's in trouble, but that kind of ends the opening. We get to the theme song to start the episode, and we pivot to the news, and it's in Walter's home, where he's got papers everywhere talking about the massive crash that Shay mentioned at the top of the show, where Donald was the air traffic controller who, redirected two planes into one another. I mean, obviously not on purpose, but he still had some PTSD going on, and his mind wasn't sharp from the death of his daughter's only child, which is very fair. And but clearly it's taken up Walter's time because he talked to him in the bar. He knows who this guy is, and also is Jane's father, who he basically killed. And Jesse's in rehab, so a lot's going on. And Walter's outside with matches, and he's clearly not in a good frame of mind.
No, yeah, you can tell that his hair looks like it's grown out, which he's kept pretty clean throughout the end of the second season for sure. Just as a little recap, Skylar before basically said, I'm going to give you the weekends to gather your things and leave the home. I don't want you here. I don't want you near the kids. So the living room basically looks like a pigsty. And, he's outside, you're right, kind of just throwing matches. And he finally gets to his last match. And what does he do? He goes and grabs his $500,000 and kind of dumps it in the barbecue, and he lights it on fire.
Yeah. And for a few moments, he just sits there and stares at it. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking, what the hell are you doing? Like, this is
idiot.
And he clearly realizes what he's done after a period of time, because he puts his hands on the money, which is burning, and he's trying to get rid of it. And he takes the whole barbecue and throws it in the pool. Then his house coat catches on fire, so he has to physically jump in the pool. So it's just a complete mess.
Yeah.
And he's going through a lot with Skylar telling him to leave. Like you said, it's mentioned that he's been home a couple weeks because of the explosion. People have been picking up debris in that area for a long period of time. So Skylar's been living at Hank and Marie's. And after this scene, we pivot to Skylar. And at the time, like you said, it was really hard. It was easy to hate Skylar because where is she? She's meeting with a divorce lawyer, easy for me to say. And she has a list of demands that she wants in regards to her children.
Yes. Yeah. So basically she, the lawyer's asking her pretty simple questions, are you guys, do you guys feel both the same way? Who's living at the house at this moment? Who plans to live at this house? And, Skylar brings it up. She says, I want to keep the kids full custody. Like no issues. I want that. And the lawyer kind of says, okay, what kind of assets do you guys hold as together? And Skylar doesn't really know because she knows that Walter has money clearly because he paid for all of these, these chemotherapy sessions that he's going to go through by himself with no help. But she obviously doesn't know how much. And, the lawyer kind of leaves it with saying, you wouldn't believe what partners hide from each other.
Yeah, it's clever. I love that writing from the show. She kind of gives her like that smile. You wouldn't believe. And Scott was like, yeah, I kind of do. I kind of do know. But she just, and the lawyer's very pointed. She goes, I don't want you to take him for everything he's worth if you don't want to, but I just want you to get what's fair and what you deserve. And I think that kind of sticks with Skylar, but to her, the most important thing is her children. And she wants, literally at this point, she wants Walter to have no communication with them, like hardly any. And that's obviously, it's a hard thing for Flynn, a 16-year-old to process.
Yeah, especially without a reason why. And that's kind of the struggles he goes with throughout these 2 episodes, is wondering why this is going on, what's happening. And obviously Skylar's not going to tell Flynn what was going on. And at the same time, Walter's also got some secrets that he kind of has to keep from him as well, because it could get him into a lot of trouble.
Yeah. Do you think that Walter should have stuck up for Skylar in this sense, where he knows he's at fault? In his right mind, he knows that she has a legitimate argument, but we see through these 2 episodes, Flynn treats his mother very poorly. And I'm just wondering, from your perspective, do you think Walter should have said something to try to not like pay him off, but just say, there's more to the story, and I haven't been that great to your mother?
Yeah, I think he should have, for sure, because in the sense that it would help Skylar out with what she's going through with him. But I think it's Walter's ego in the sense that he's like, well, I'm not going to stick up for Skylar when she doesn't know everything I've been through and done for the family. So I think he just doesn't come off that way. He's just saying, if she, she's not going to give me what's due and the credit that I did, I cooked all this meth and I killed multiple people for this family, then, I'm not going to help you out with this mess that you've created on your own, because clearly he feels that they're still happily married, he says in one scene, and they couldn't further be from the truth if you come from Skylar's point of view.
Right. And yet that's so, just thinking back to child, like, you never know, like, you see people, even, friends. I think of, our social circle. Sometimes 2 friends are fighting. You never know. It's just, it's the ability to pick up on social cues. I think you develop as you age and through experience, just, and, from us being 24, me being, 23 in a couple of months, I think you only get better at that as you age. And he's 16, and a very young 16 at that, because he doesn't have a whole lot of, life experience outside of his close family.
Yeah, fair enough. Exactly.
So Walter is going to move out. Doesn't put up that big of a fight. He's moving out, and Hank comes to help him move, and he's cleaning up the pool. He's picking up dollar bills, putting them in his pocket, and he's looking in the grate to find money. What's in there but an eye, a human eye from the crash, which is,
I think it's the eye from the teddy bear, isn't it, Juggy?
It could be. I thought
that'd be pretty gross. I don't think a regular old, unless it was like for instance, my dad has a fake eye. Unless it was like a fake eye like that, maybe like that could be a possibility, I guess.
Yeah. It was hard to tell because but the way he hit it, you wouldn't like Hank comes out onto the deck and Walter throws the eye in his pocket. So I don't know if you'd hide the eye of a teddy bear and put that in your pocket though.
Maybe. Yeah, that makes sense.
So it's kind of hard to say, but so they start packing the truck. Hank is being Hank. He's just chatting about God knows what. And he's trying to be supportive and, as much as he can. And he goes, yeah, it's a shitty situation, man, but you gotta just ride with the punches. And then they pack the two vehicles and Hank goes for the last bag and Walter grabs it at the same time. He says, no. Like, I'll take this. And Hank goes, no, I got it. Jesus, what's in there? Like a ton of bricks. And what does Walter respond with?
Walter, dead serious face. And I remember the first time I watched, like, what the fuck's he doing? He goes, $500,000. And they kind of share like a moment, and then Hank just laughs it off. And he's like, yeah, okay, yeah, sure. That's what you want to believe. And then he throws it in the car. But it's another kind of, we've seen this in the past too, with Walter kind of flaring this right in Hank's face, kind of saying, you know what, like, I'll give you a chance to bust me, or I'll give you a chance to figure something out. And it's another strikeout for Hank as he kind of just plays it off like it's nothing.
Yeah, it's the trust factor of my family member, or it's just a joke, too. Like, of course, oh, okay, a good one, Walt. Yeah, it's $500,000 in cash. Like, screw you. And Walt's clearly very cavalier right now, and he's kind of losing it a bit. Then there's this is not a funny scene, but it was kind of comical a little bit to me anyway. So the school is having an assembly.
Oh God.
And like, this isn't funny, the subject matter, but the way he approaches it is funny, I found anyway. So they're having an assembly about the crash. And, just for kids to be able to vent and talk about their feelings, which is good. I think this was really done a lot during like 9/11 and the Sandy Hook and different school shootings. I think I remember in high school, Shay, we might have had one of those when there was a school shooting.
Student. Yeah.
Right. So kids are talking and different teachers, and Principal Carmen gives the mic to Walter. And he starts off, it's just a terrible, terrible speech where he talks about how people just forget about accidents. He goes, do you remember that crash where, that plane was full and that other one was full too? That's way more deaths. But you know who remembers that? Nobody. You know what humans do? We move on. And everybody's just looking at him like he's no feelings. And the principal eventually has to take the mic from him.
Yeah, he starts off the speech by saying, look at the bright side. Yeah. And everyone's just like, what the hell is this guy talking about? And you're right. Yeah, he's just going off like, and he's like, oh, no one on the ground got hurt. Like, what are the odds in a highly populated area that, not one person got injured from the debris? And everyone's just kind of like, But yeah, you're right. It is, obviously it's a dark subject, but it's a kind of a funny scene. And I think it's a little bit of Walter feeling like to himself, he's got to say this because he himself feels guilty because he may feel that he has caused this indirectly through Jane and Donald.
Right. Yeah, no, great point. I think for sure, when you do something wrong, you want to justify it. Mm-hmm. And for him, even having a small aspect in this, well, I could say he had the biggest aspect in this, letting Jane pass. He also let 186 people die. Yeah. So that's 187 lives on his hands, indirectly or directly. Mm-hmm. Do you want to talk about the twins next, or the rehab scene, which I think is really quite powerful?
We'll start with the rehab scene, I think, because I think that was a really good, really I would say tough subject, but obviously.
Yeah, and I think it's a really well acted scene. The therapist, he was in Bates Motel. It's where I've seen him most. I find him a very, very good actor. I've seen him play a creepy role, and he does that well. But he, Jesse's in rehab, and we kind of tell he's a bit ticked. They're talking about feelings a lot and self-acceptance, and he's just kind of like, feelings and all. He doesn't want to hear it. And the therapist says, Jesse, you never speak up. Like, what, why don't you say what you're feeling? Like, even if you say I'm full of shit, like, tell me. And Jesse says, okay, did you ever hurt someone? Like, do you actually know what you're talking about? Did you actually ever hurt somebody? And the therapist tells a pretty sad story.
Yeah, and I remember watching this the first time, and when you hear it the first time, it's a story you'll never forget.
Yeah.
Because it's delivered. You're right. This guy, great actor, he delivers it so well and so calmly that he's just a story that rings off. And I won't go through the whole every inch in detail, but basically this guy says, he starts off by saying, I killed my daughter, which kind of sets the tone for the story in the sense that, it A, shuts Jesse up, and B, it's kind of like, okay, well, this guy's been through something very traumatic, obviously. And, it comes from, he's saying, I remember the date, it was July, I don't know, it was like 18th,
Yeah.
1992. And it was my birthday. And, I was high on cocaine and I was running out of booze. I had plenty of cocaine, but I didn't have enough booze. So I told my wife, please go get it. Please go get it. And she said, no. So he says, I had 15 minutes. And what does he do? He hops in his truck and his daughter was at the end of the driveway. And I mean, you can put together the rest because
yeah, incredibly heartbreaking story. You hear about these tales. Sometimes it's just bad luck, or not looking behind you when you're backing up, and it's not. But this guy was an addict, and Jesse hears it. And he's moved, and he says, "Do you not want to just kill yourself every day, and do you not just hate yourself?" And he says, "I did for a long time." But he said, I got through it. Like I got off drugs. I'm better now. So I still have those demons, but I've accepted who I am for all my faults, all my successes. And that goes to Jesse's heart, and he takes that to heart and kind of uses that as fuel moving forward.
Yeah, exactly. I think Jesse takes some good things away. I don't think he takes everything away from rehab, but I definitely think he takes some things away. And right out of the gate when he gets picked up, I don't know if it's at the end of this episode or at the beginning of the next. He basically just says, I'm done using. Like that's not going to help me anymore.
Yeah, and like you said, when he picks him up, Walter brings him to his place for a little bit because he doesn't have anywhere to go. Obviously, with getting kicked out of his place where Jane was. And he says, you know what? I've accepted who I am. And Walter says, okay, who are you, Jesse? And he goes, I'm the bad guy, which is what I think you're referencing when you say he took some bad things out of rehab. Like, I don't think Jesse's a bad person.
No.
He's got some bad flaws. He's got some bad things about him, but is he a bad guy? No, he's got a pure heart. He wants the best for people. And in this case, something bad happened, but it wasn't totally his fault.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's awful. Like Walter's just trying to justify it. Basically, he's like, you could see the positive out of Jade, referring to Jane's death, and and Jesse's just like, oh my God, like, are you really preaching this early into our meeting? Because Jesse has been sober for 45 days, so we can only assume that he's been in there for a month and a half. And in this time, obviously, he's gotten better and is, he looks better. He's referred to, and yeah, Walter's Walter. He tries to help him the best way. Even Jesse even says he blames himself for those deaths. He said it as soon as he got into the apartment, and Walter indirectly, I think he's telling Jesse, no, that's not your fault. It could have been faulty. Could it be faulty radar? It could have been this and that. Mm-hmm. And while he's saying that, all I'm thinking is, well, he's kind of saying it for himself at the same time, because those are probably stuff he's feeding himself. And Jesse kind of just says, Mr. White, you either run from your problems or you face them.
Which, good message, because Walter never does that.
Yeah, runs all the time.
Yeah, and I don't know if you know this, we'll see this going forward, but I think wardrobe really makes a change in Jesse because he dresses differently the rest of the show than the first couple seasons.
Yeah, he's kind of a wankster in the first couple
Yeah.
seasons, and dresses, you could say very, I wouldn't say poorly because some people call that fashionable, but yeah, you definitely see him clean up his appearance. He's more shaved more of the time, I would say.
Yeah.
And yeah, he just looks like he's just better well kept, I would say.
Yeah. So we mentioned the twins, and these two are not done yet, not by a little bit. They're back in the Mercedes, and they're still in Mexico, it looks like anyway. And they stop at this family farm, and this father's working on an old truck. The mother is just kind of with the animals, and they are scared to death of these two guys because they just stop and walk into the farm. They don't enter the home, but they're on their property. Their little daughter is hanging out by a donkey. And, at first you think, okay, they're going to kill them, like these two guys, but they don't. What they do is they walk up to the clothesline and they get some new wardrobe, Shay.
Yeah. And you're kind of like, what the hell are they doing? The only thing they don't change is their boots, which are like kind of like these rattlesnake skin boots with skulls at the end. And yeah, you're like, what the hell is going on here? Like, what are they just changing for? And sure enough, they kind of walk up to the little girl, and there's this scene where the parents are just clutching each other from afar, and they're looking at them like, oh my God, like what are they going to do to our daughter? And what do they do? But they just basically throw her the keys to the Mercedes and walk off.
Yeah, they leave the beautiful Mercedes there, don't hurt them, and leave with their farm clothes. So
kind of like almost like payment, really, for their time and their clothes.
Yeah, and clearly this family, they had an old truck, so this car would just be life changing for them. So pretty good trade.
I think one thing you can agree on, Juggy, is what makes these guys so intimidating is the silent factor and the unpredictableness that comes with not saying anything at all, because it doesn't give away what they're thinking and what they're going to do. So by not saying anything at all, it really is just kind of leaves it up to the viewer's imagination on what they could do and what they may do, I guess.
Yeah, their facial expression never changes.
No,
they
never.
Just constantly have this stone face that looks angry. And yeah, they don't speak. So you're just like, and they're jacked, and that doesn't help either. So these two are scary dudes. We go back. Skylar has gone to Walter's house, and Walter's very excited. He goes, oh, yeah, come in. But however, he's greeted with divorce papers, and he is not happy with this.
No, automatically he kind of loses it right out of the way. He's like, you come into this place, you wave these papers in front of my face, what do you think I am? And Skylar, who's been pretty quiet up to this point, says, you're a drug dealer. And automatically Walter's like, what are you talking about? But they've been married too long that Skylar knows that she caught him in a lie.
Yeah, she goes, it's with that Pinkman, isn't it? You're selling weed. And he doesn't really have a response. So she goes, cocaine? He goes, no, crystal meth, actually. And she's just completely, really disgusted. And she gets up to leave. He says, no, stay. We need to hash this out. She goes, I won't tell Hank. I won't tell any of the cops. I won't tell the kids if you sign those papers and leave us alone forever. Basically giving him an ultimatum, leave us alone, or I'll spill your secrets.
Yeah, a bit of a jam for old Mr. White as he finds himself in probably the toughest spot, family-wise now, because, I mean, she's technically got him by the nuts, I guess you could say.
Very much. I mean, she's got his biggest secret, and that's jail for life. That she's got him on. So
good for her for putting that together too. I mean, that's when the first time watching this, I'm like, how the hell, like did someone tell her? And she's like, no, like the only way you can make that amount of money that quickly would be just to do that. And, basically caught him, thought it out and caught him in a lie. That was, I mean, pretty darn accurate if you ask me.
Yeah, no, yeah, really good. After she leaves, he gets a text. We don't really know who it's from, but we see that the screen pivots to Walter's back at Los Polos Hermanos, the chicken restaurant where he did the deal, if you recall, with Gustavo Fring, the owner, for the $1.3 million for the meth that he sold. And he's in there, and Gus sits with him and says, I have an offer for you. And Walter says, before he can start, no, I'm not interested. I'm out of the business. I got to take care of my family. Like, money's one thing, but I don't even have a family right now. I need to rebuild that bridge. And Gus says, $3 million for 3 months of your time. And Walter goes, 3 million? He goes, do I take that as a yes? And he still declines it.
Yeah. I think Gus he's a tad bit ticked, but at the same time,
yeah,
the way Walter hesitates when he says 3 million, I think he knows that the hooks are in. And he's like, okay, this guy's walking away from too much money to just walk away from. He will be back. That's what I think Gus is thinking the second time watching this. But you're right. Walter's strong-willed. He went in there knowing that he was going to walk away from this no matter what. And at this time, he does walk away from it, and he's a man of his word.
Yeah, I also think Gus is pissed off and probably pretty shocked because he knows Walter's motivation. But he gets up, shakes his hand, and acts like the professional businessman that we know him to be. He's very well groomed. He's always proper, and he's just on the surface, he's a very good guy. We'll learn more about him, but he doesn't present the front that he's this dangerous, Tuco-like drug dealer.
No, you're right. Straight professional businessman. He's got loads of money from what it can seem like. So, his reach is kind of, all over the place. But yeah, he's definitely someone that we get into a little bit later. And I think you learn to appreciate him and you learn to hate him at the same time.
Exactly. Yeah. So to end this episode, we pivot back to where it started, the twins. But this time they are in a hay truck, and there's hay stacked on top of them. So we clearly learn that they are sneaking into the United States. They're with some other Mexican people, and this one guy is talking about how he's going to make some money working at this muffler shop, and that he's going to be a big deal down there, and he's got a family that's making all this money, and he starts talking about the cartel, and he clearly realizes that he's kind of misspoke.
Yeah, olive oil, he calls himself, because he's so slick. Yeah. And he's talking, and he looks down, and he's sitting right across some tins, and he goes, yeah, those are some nice boots. And he realizes right away that he's made a mistake, because he clearly recognizes that these are, two cartel members. And he kind of you're right, he just shuts the hell up. And the next scene is basically the twins looking at each other, and gunshots just come ablazing from this hay pen.
Yeah, we just hear gunshots. The guy driving the truck is like this old farmer, and he goes, "What the hell is going on in there?" He clearly, and he's got a bad limp, so he starts walking like it's like you wake up and one of your legs is asleep because you leave it crossed too much. He's trying to get away, but it's it's like a snail getting away. These two get out of the truck. They shoot him in the leg. He's not dead right away, so they go up, finish the job, and then they decide to destroy the truck, Shay.
Yeah, badass scene. This is when you think of great TV explosions, I think of this one probably more often than not. And just the way it's done, they shoot the gas tank, they both light up cigars. Obviously they drop one. And I feel like the explosions almost, how some explosions come off and they almost seem fake. Or you're like, okay, that was CGI. That wasn't that good. This one's loud and it's in your face, and these guys, they don't even budge.
No,
Like
they're like a foot away and they don't even, it's nothing. They're walking, they keep looking straight. They never look back. And it's just like, oh, it's just another day at the office.
yeah, and you got to think these are the two guys that are coming for Walter. I mean, like these guys seem, well, the show takes them to seem pretty damn near invincible. Let's be honest.
Yes. Yeah. Nothing bothers them. Nobody can stop them. And yeah, they're hot on Walter's trail. So this is bad news for old Walter White. And yeah, that wraps up episode 1. The twins will be back in episode 2. Don't worry about that. They will be back. But starting episode 2, very much different. We see Walter driving down kind of this highway, you'd say. And he's listening to some music. He's singing.
Good music.
Was that Neil Young?
No, that's a good guess. It's called A Horse with No Name by America. And it's funny because it translates to this episode really well, Juggy. I went to read about it, and knowing the song from what I know, it's basically a man going insane in the desert. And he lets his horse go and stuff like that, and the waves, or the sand turns to waves and water. So it's basically him losing his mind a little bit. And really, when you think about it, it kind of translates to this episode in a sense, and we'll get into that later. I'll explain.
Yeah, no. So Walter's driving, having a great old time singing the song, but just to mention, he's got his windshield's very cracked from the crash. It's very badly damaged, but he hasn't fixed it. So he's driving. A cop goes past him, but then quickly turns around, throws his lights on. So Walter's kind of like, what the hell? Why am I getting pulled over? I wasn't speeding. So the cruiser comes up to him and kind of tells him about his windshield, and Walter's given news that he's not very happy about.
Yeah, he writes him up, and he's like, well, you know about the crash, right? Like, why are you writing me up? Like, it was all over my house. And then this is Walter slowly unwinding. Yeah. He can't fathom the fact that this officer would write him up for this. So he gets out of the vehicle. The officer says, "Sir, stay in your vehicle like I asked you to." And he said, "No, that like this is America. Like I have rights to get out of my vehicle when I please."
Yeah, and he goes, for too long, freedom of speech has been taken away from us, and you police, we can't say anything anymore. And he's losing it. And he goes, "I didn't do anything. It was an accident, and I got to pay to fix all this crap." And he goes, "Why? Oh, you're going to take me downtown, something like that? Oh, you're getting your pepper spray out. That's good. Why don't you go ahead then and just mace me, because you guys all keep screwing me." And we pivot. He's getting put in the back of the cruiser, and his eyes are just basically completely shut, full of pepper spray.
Oh yeah, I thank God, Juggy, I've never had someone pepper spray me before. I think it's a requirement when you go into things like the military and the police force. But it is all time painful, I think, and I think your nose just runs, and he can't wipe his eyes because he's in handcuffs, so he just kind of has to live with it on his face. But yeah, it's a great intro to the episode, because I mean, Walter's freak out, plus seeing him like this is, it's not good, obviously, but it is kind of humorous a little bit.
Yeah, it is, because he's so pissed off about the events of his life with the marriage and the crash, and he's taking it out on this cop, where he does have a legitimate argument.
Oh yeah,
but maybe get a cop or somebody to vouch for you when they're at your house, and then you can take that to a body shop and maybe you get a deal of some kind. Don't drive around with it for 45 days after, and then cry bloody murder then.
Yeah, because it's not like I drove my last car for a long time, and there was this big crack right in the middle, or not in the middle, it was like right through, but it was at the bottom. This one's like two massive chunks right taken out of it. It would be fairly hard to drive, and obviously the officer has a fair point in it.
Yeah. So we go and we pivot to Hank. He's kind of giving a presser to the bullpen about the twins killing the illegals sneaking into to Texas, and everybody's kind of like, why the hell do we get this? This isn't a drug case. And he goes, no, I pulled it. I think this has something to do with the cartel. It smells to me. They didn't find any evidence, any gunshots, nothing at the scene. They didn't leave us any tracks. And he goes, I just think something's got to happen with the cartel. And another great read by Hank, that this is not just, an illegals, getting caught or an explosion happening in the middle of the desert.
Yeah, and at this point, everyone's kind of saying, well, Hank, like, the blue meth hasn't resurfaced. I think you're just kind of teaching a dead end here. But Hank knows that there's something more. He wasn't fed up with the guy that's in prison and, the so-called Walter White. So you're right. He's onto it. He's developed a little bit of a obsession over it, but we'll get into that far deeper into the season.
Yeah. And so he gives this presser. He says, it's too quiet in here. Go catch some bad guys. And he gets a call, and Walter has called him. And so we see Walter sitting on this bench, and he looks so pathetic, even more pathetic than he's been at points in the show. And he's forced to apologize to the police officer for raising his voice and for being rude. And it's just another low point for Walter, because you could tell he did not want to have to apologize to the cop.
No, yeah, he feels like what he did and said was justified, but he knows very well that he's not just going to get off just because Hank's, his brother-in-law. He has to actually go ahead and, swallow his pride per se and tell this officer what he wants to hear.
Yeah, so they do get away. He doesn't have to pay any fines or anything major anyway. He'll have to pay his ticket, but nothing more than that. And then it's funny because he gets in the car and Walter starts kind of spilling his guts. He tells Hank about the divorce plans, which to our knowledge, Hank did not know. Mm-hmm. And he says, she does not want me to see the kids. And this one really hits Hank hard because he's clearly taken aback by it. And he knows Walter just to be his good brother-in-law, his friend. And it's kind of like, well, what do I do here? It's my wife's sister. I'm friends with you. He's in a really tough position.
Yeah, and I think, at this point, obviously, neither Hank or Marie know anything of why this is going on. This is a complete mystery, and we see that. And I think it was when Walter was dropping off Walter Jr., and he basically just goes, Marie's like, oh, well, I can't help you if you're not going to tell me. And Skylar says, I never asked for your help. I'm dealing with this on my own. So she's being tight-lipped about it because obviously this new deal that she's kind of struck with Walter, that if he signs the papers, she won't spill the beans about it.
Right. And you can't blame Hank and Marie for being a little bit upset because they want to help too. It's not, Marie's nosy for sure, but that's not her main motivation here. So Saul comes and visits Walter, and Walter's like, this is bad. Like, she wants to divorce me. And Saul's like, no, this is a good thing. And Walter's like, how the hell is it a good thing? He goes, she's not going to tell the cops. She's not telling the DEA. You can keep your money. You're off scot-free. And Walt's like, well, I don't have a family, Saul. And he goes, well, yeah, but there's a lot of fish in that sea, Walt.
Yeah, he's completely oblivious to like anything, any means of family. He's just kind of like, well, they can be replaced, no problem. Like and even goes as far as saying, well, there's plenty of these Thailand girls and Czech girls who are just, they're just lucky to be here, and they'd help you out, no problem. And Walter's kind of like, oh, Jesus, like how do I get messed up with this? But we realized that Saul's main intention by going there is basically saying, you need to start cooking again. You need to start making some money, and in turn making him money.
Yeah, and also I don't think he goes in and gives Walt that vote of confidence, but clearly he's not 100% sold on Skylar remaining quiet. He could be also worried about Walter not following through on her demands. So when he gets in the car, he calls. are unknown. I wish we could. We know both of us know his name. Wish we could release it, but we
The
can't.
vet.
He
Yeah.
calls the unknown that helped clean up Jesse's mess with Jane. And what we do learn is that he has a granddaughter. He's at the park with her. He's reading a paper and he gives her money to go buy an ice cream. And he kind of answers the phone and says, "Okay, do you have an address?" And Saul basically tells him to go bug Walter's home.
Yeah. He wants to keep an eye on Skylar and basically make sure that she's not going to spill the beans on this deal that she's kind of made with Walter. So he watches the home, and sure enough, he sees the cars pull away, and he goes in. And you can automatically tell this is not this veteran's first time go around. He's well prepared. He drills a hole, gets his wire going, and someone else arrives at the door shortly after he does.
Yeah. Walter does show up after a period of time, but I'm gonna keep that till the end because that's really the
oh yeah. That's the end of the episode. Okay, so we'll get revisit that later on because that has something to tie in with the
yeah. But so at dinner that night, Flynn, Hank and Marie have come over, and Flynn is still really angry. And they're talking about how Hank saw Walter and he's doing okay. And Marie, Skylar, he goes, "You can't even say his name. Like you act like he doesn't even exist anymore." And he goes, "I don't know why you can't come here. I don't know why you're just acting like such a bitch." And it's you don't call your mother a bitch.
No, never, ever. I mean, he's frustrated because of the unknown, and obviously, maybe if he knew, maybe he'd feel very, very differently. Even if it was for Walter's good intentions. But no, you can't say that. And automatically, Hank's like, "No, buddy, like that's not going to fly with me."
Mm-hmm.
And he's able to walk off scot-free. But he's like, if you could just tell me, give me a little insight on what's going on here, Skylar. Like this would be a lot easier, and we could be able to help you out. And Skylar gives him the cold shoulder. This is another scene that makes me go, "Oh, Skylar's." Even though I didn't want her to say anything, I still went, "Oh, Skylar's."
Because he's saying it very sincerely. He goes, "It's none of my business, but why can't he see the kids? It just seems a little alarming to me." And she goes, "You're right, Hank. It is none of your business." And that's a really cruel, kind of crude thing to say to your brother-in-law, who's only got good intentions for his nephew and his niece, and for her, for that matter. And they kind of leave after eating, and they both, Hank, his opinion is that Walter is cheating on her.
Yeah, he basically calls Walter too much of a nice guy, or kind of an average dude, and just says basically, well, people like this, second cell phone, it happens all the time. That's what happens. And Marie's not sold on that. Marie says, "I think it's more." And it's funny to see her intentions kind of be better than Walt or Hank's, because I mean she's got a feeling, and she kind of sticks with it. But it's just interesting to see that Marie's kind of more on the trail of the right direction than Hank is, because he's a detective.
She's sniffing it out better than him. He just thinks the obvious. It's a marriage. This is what has to happen. So Jesse, he's out of rehab. He's kind of moved out of Walter's a little bit anyway. He's kind of getting out on his own, and he drives to his aunt's old house. Just in the neighborhood. He wanted to see it, and he sees a bunch of trucks in the driveway that are doing some renovations on it, and his parents are in the front of the yard, and there's also a real estate sign up. And his dad is still not great to him. He says, he asks him for a tour. He goes, "No, they're working, not a good time." He goes, "Well, I could come back, or maybe we could even have dinner some night." And he goes, yeah, maybe, but you look good. You look good anyway. And it's his parents really not giving him a chance.
Yeah, no, his parents just kind of give him the go around, Juggy, and you can kind of tell it bothers him, but he kind of keeps a cool lid about things. He's not going to overreact. He kind of gets the social cues. Okay, like they don't want me here. I get it, and it's whatever. And he just kind of leaves. But yeah, it's the parents, not And to Jesse's point, he could have just said, "Oh, I went to rehab. I'm sober now." But he doesn't even say that. He just kind of says, "Oh yeah, I've just been doing better." And
Yeah.
still, like, if you saw your, hey, how are you? Or, yeah, you should come to dinner sometime. Come to dinner tomorrow night.
Yeah.
But he doesn't even give him that.
No, and we learned that they've redone the upstairs bathroom that has the hole in the tub. They got new appliances everywhere. They've moved the garage, and basically they put in over $400,000 worth of renovations into Jesse's old house.
Yeah, and we hear later that it's kind of, when it's sold, it's going to be for Jake's space camp or space school. I don't really know what that's about, but yeah, that's kind of what the money's going towards.
So yeah, Jesse immediately goes to Saul's, and that's where his money is, and he just sits there and he starts taking money out. And Saul's like, "Yeah, good to see you back here. Like, you're clean, but you know what you got to do? You got to start cooking. You got to get the got to get Walter on the horn. Start cooking. That's how you're gonna get better." And Jesse just does. It's like he doesn't even hear him. He goes, "Do you want a job?" And Saul says, "What job?" And the screen kind of pivots, and we learn later that Jesse has a plan.
Yeah, a really good plan. But I believe there's something between that and this.
Yeah. So we see this old folks home, and at first you're like, "What the hell are we doing at an old folks home?" See older people playing board games and nurses, and the TV's on, but who walks into the old folks home but our two twins? They're back in suits. They still got the boots on, but they go and find our old pal, aka Mr. Ding, Don Hector Salamanca, who was Tuco's uncle. And they grab the Ouija board game, which has all the letters on it. So they get a pen, they get a piece of paper, and they sit with Don Hector. And one of them scales his finger through the letters, and every time he gets to a letter, Don Hector will ring the bell to say yes or no. And through this whole process, they eventually get to the last letter being E, and the two twins have spelled out the name Walter White.
Yes, and I'm a little wary, but how does Hector know that name, or like how does he know that's who he should be going for again? Like
Tuco pulled out their wallets when he was at their place, so I assume he learned it through that.
Okay, so he knows. Yeah, I was thinking about that. I was like, well, how would he know who Hector is? How would he know who Walter is? But yeah, he learned it. He learned both of their names, I guess.
Yeah.
Through Tuco basically interrogating them. But yeah, no, it's a great scene. He's just a bunch of old people just sleeping, like I imagine an old folks home would be. But yeah, and then and there you kind of know Walter's in way more danger than we thought. These guys have really crept up, and they have some affiliation with the cartel, because we know that's what Hector used to do in his past life.
Yeah, he was a big member of the cartel, and yeah, he's in really deep shit here. So before we get back to Jesse, Walter gets home from work, and Flynn is outside of his apartment, and he's still lashing out his mother. He doesn't want to be there, but Walter calls Skylar, says, "I'll bring him home." And he kind of does sit him down at this point and says that, there's more to the story. I can't really tell you all of it. But then Flynn, so ironically, says, "Well, you've done nothing wrong. And, you've done nothing wrong. You're a good man. Like, she needs to grow up." And it's a tough scene because Walter doesn't really stick up for Skylar, but he can't say his truth either.
Yeah, and this is the predicament we talked about earlier, basically not being able to tell him anything because, if he gives him too much information, who knows what could happen. So it's tough, but yeah, he says that, and Walter's kind of excited. He's like, okay, like this is my chance to see Skylar, kind of play dad again, and try and get back into the house. And he gets a different result than he may intentionally think.
Yeah, he gets to the house and he's got a pizza and like cheesy bread or something, and he's
Dipping bread.
Yeah, and he goes, I brought pizza, and she goes, I can see that, and he goes, well, can't we just at least have a pizza, like a slice of pizza together? She goes, well, I'm cooking. He goes, well, you could have it tomorrow. It's even better the next day. And she goes, Walter, I was pretty clear about what my intentions are. I don't want you here. And she basically slams the door on him, and he's stuck there holding the bag, literally.
Yeah, I mean, and Flynn kind of just walks right by her, doesn't even look her in the eye. And well, Walter is left at the door, and he's walking back to the car. And this scene is to me is almost iconic a little bit, in the sense that when I don't know, every time I think about this episode, I think about this. He kind of just chucks the pizza, and he kind of flings it up in the air. The pizza box lands on the ground, but the pizza itself remains on the roof. And yeah, it's just funny that the writers would throw something in like this, because obviously it's Walter having a little bit of fit of rage, but at the same sense, like who would just throw a random pizza around? You think about just slamming it or something like that, or just chucking it at the house, but no, he throws it up onto the roof.
Yeah, and he leaves it there in the New Mexico heat, so you can imagine what this pizza.
Extra crispy.
Yeah, and he goes home to his apartment and basically
is a bender.
Ties one on. Yeah. He wakes up in a bag of popcorn, and he's in his underwear with a white t-shirt on. He's just like, what's going on? And Skylar calls him and says, you're this immature. You leave a pizza on the roof. Like, Walter, you need to control your emotions. You need to settle down. I'm doing all that I can for you right now, and you need to basically behave and do as you're told and quit lashing out.
Yeah, and he immediately gets up because he wants to get the phone, and the first thing he does is whack his head off the table. And the first thing I think of is that sounded really real and genuine. Yeah. Like, that must have actually been I'm going to slam my head as hard as I can.
I think so.
So yeah. I think the reaction afterwards is the same, but yeah, it's just not looking good for him right now. And one thing I've noticed, Juggy, and over the course of the last two episodes, Walter doesn't have control. He doesn't have control over his life. He doesn't have control over his family. And this is why he's kind of throwing these fits of rage, and he's just not himself at all, because you see the scene where he's walking by a pool. Well, there's a Band-Aid in the pool. Yeah. He makes a point to go around the cage, grab the scooper, and scoop up this Band-Aid. Same with he's looking at this PBJ sandwich, and he's cutting it to perfection. This is someone with, I think, severe OCD and control problems, and at this stage of his life, he has just no control, and that's why he's kind of acting this way.
Right. Yeah. And you could say he doesn't even have control over himself, because he can't do what he wants to do. So he's lashing out. And yeah, I absolutely agree. His son, he could possibly control, but he can't, because his mother, and he can't see his newborn daughter. And I agree. He's completely losing it, and he's acting out, temper tantrums, whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. He's letting it all get to him. Before we get to the final scene of the episode, we see that Saul is in the lawyer's office where Jesse once met with his parents when they told him that they were kicking him out of his aunt's house. And so Jesse's parents come in, they sit down with Saul, and he goes, yeah, we're gonna buy this place. Yeah, the buyer mystery will remain a mystery. He's really interested. He loves it, loves the renos, and he'll give you the cash money today. And they're like, oh, great. And he goes, what's the price again? 800 some thousand. Yeah, see, that's the only snag. We'll buy it for 4. And they're like, what? Is this a joke? Like 400,000? Like we're selling it for 875. And he goes, well, that's my final offer. And they're like, okay, well, kick rocks. And on the way out, Saul just throws in, yeah, good luck selling it when the basement's been a meth lab before.
He basically throws it in their face that, he knows. And he's like, well, I don't see the disclosure on, you've checked for termites here, but nothing about a meth lab. And he's like, well, I can get it apprehended and, possibly on hold for, criminal activity for who knows how long, and then it won't be sold. And, he's kind of flaring this up in their face, and he does a really good job. We see Saul become a really good lawyer when he really needs to be.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one of those moments where he's on the ball and he's taking them for all he's owned. And I mean, we clearly know that, he says he's leaving his buyer as anonymous, but there's only a few people there that know who put a meth lab in there.
Right. And he's basically got a gun to Jesse's parents' head saying, okay, don't take my deal, but you're not going to get somebody else to buy it because I'll tell them, or I'll represent them in this kind of thing. And so we pivot to Jesse's parents. They're at the home. They're sitting outside out front waiting for the new buyer. And who pulls up is but Jesse, and his mother she goes, oh, just what we need. And I was, and she goes, hey guys. And he starts walking towards the house, and she goes, Jesse, what are you doing? Like, this is not your house anymore. Our new buyers are showing up here any second. He goes, flash the keys in their face. Yeah, I bought the place, and shuts the door and basically throwing it back in their face. And I love this from Jesse to get even with his parents who have been so shitty to him throughout the series.
Just the most satisfying feeling. The camera just pivots to them, and they're like, oh, we got fucked, or like, oh, we actually got it good from our son, and he deserves it. I mean, his parents have not treated him well. I'm sure he's not been a great son in their life, but that doesn't mean that they can just abandon him like this. And he took all the pieces of information he needed to everything from the house being fully renoed and basically just pulling the money right from his parents' pockets without them even knowing.
Yeah, brilliant move by him and Saul, and it works to perfection. Jesse now officially owns his aunt's house for real. So a big shift for him that he is now a homeowner and kind of has a stable base for himself now that Jane has passed and he needed a new place to be. So you mentioned our mystery man. He goes to Skylar's and aka Walter's, and he starts plugging in devices in home, and he's a seasoned pro clearly. But Walter shows up just moments after he does. He tries to get in the front door, but Skylar's changed the locks, which pisses him off. So he goes to the back of the house, and our mystery guy is hiding behind a wall, and Walter is forced to go into the house through the foundation, the basement, so to speak, where he was cleaning up the rot in the second season. He has to climb through the vent and then through the floorboard to get into the house.
Yeah, and I mean, from doing this, he's climbing through spider webs, dirt, and whatever else. So it's a funny scene. He just kind of gets up, and he goes to get cleaned up, but another vehicle shortly pulls out to the house, and who could it be but our two favorite twins?
So our mystery bald older gentleman is back in the car, and he sees them, and he knows immediately the threat that they present, because obviously they pull out a hatchet, so that speaks for itself, but just the look of these two, and he knows the boots, and he immediately makes a call. The twins enter the home, they see the newborn baby picture on the fridge, and they kind of run their hand through it, which is a bit scary, meaning maybe they finish the job with the rest of the family. But they hear Walter singing, so they go and sit on his bed, and they're basically waiting for him to come out of the bathroom and kill him. But our mystery man makes a call, and at first, at least when you watch the first time, you think, okay, he's calling Saul, but Shay, that's not who he called.
He calls, from what we know, the right-hand man of Gustavo Fring, and he tells him, he basically, calls Gustavo, or walks up and tells Gustavo what's going on.
Yeah.
And shortly after, the two men sitting, waiting for Walter to dice him up into mini pieces, they get a text, and much like Walter's text, all it says is Polos.
Yeah, so they know to go to Los Polos Hermanos, and when Walter gets out of the shower, opens the bathroom door into his bedroom, they're gone. He said he has no idea that they were there. He has no idea that he was literally moments away from death, and a bad one at that. And so clearly our mystery man works for Saul, but you put two and two together, he must also work for Gustavo Fring.
Yeah, he is, above being a veteran of what he does, he's also a guardian angel in the sense that he's gave Walter his biggest break during the show that we've seen. And Walter's caught a lot of breaks, believe it or not. You think of the first episode when he starts off, he's just waiting for sirens, and he's got the gun, and it turns out to just be firefighters coming.
Yeah,
that's one. But you could think of about 3 or 4 more other times where Walter's really caught a big break, but none bigger than this one. And I mean, it just obviously comes down to timing, because what if the veteran, what if he went 20 minutes later, you know what I mean? Or what if he was 20 minutes earlier and he's already left? So it's a big break for Walter, but clearly these guys know who Gustavo is, because they wouldn't just see that text and if it was from a stranger and think, well, whatever, and they leave automatically.
Right. So clearly we know that Gustavo has some connection to the cartel. We don't exactly know how, but like you said, he texted them directly, so he has connections in that world. And this episode ends like this, and also Walter brought his whole suitcase home. He didn't just get there. He's staying put. That'll be a big focal point of the next episode, but he's moving back home. He's defying Skylar, and really throwing caution to the wind with her threatening to reveal his secrets. Yeah.
The next couple episodes are really, really, really strong. I think, especially with what happens. I think it's the next episode, at the end of the next episode. I might be wrong in that sense, or maybe this episode following.
Right.
With a certain scene at the mall, but anyways, we'll get into all that in next week. But what were your thoughts going through these episodes and dissecting them, and you watch them for a 4th time?
I'm trying to like Skylar more. I like Walter less watching this time. Just talking with you about his behavior and his temper tantrums. He's a 50-year-old man. Like, come on, So I like Walter less than I did originally. I still like Jesse just as much. I feel for him. I think I always will, no matter how many times I rewatch this show. But yeah, I think the writing is just so good. Vince Gilligan and the writing, how they do things. You mentioned the song. That's so big. Me and you are both such huge movie buffs, and a lot of Emmy-winning shows, a lot of Emmy-winning, Oscar-winning movies, they have soundtracks that lead to them winning an Oscar, because the acting's great, but picking the right song to represent the mood, to represent the scene, is almost just as important. And I think Breaking Bad does a really good job of that in a lot of scenes as well.
Absolutely. Even that last scene where the two twins are slowly walking through Walter's house. There's a great, very eerie soundtrack playing in the background as Walter sings to America. But yeah, no, it's 100% true. You think of great movies, you just think of unbelievable soundtracks to follow, and this is no exception to this show. I mean, like I said, Walter is slowly starting to unwind from what I said at the beginning of when we were talking about the beginning of this episode. He's kind of losing it because of his OCD and his inability to control anything going on in his life.
Yeah, it's not going well for Walter, and he's having a hard time processing it. So yeah, that's gonna do it for our 2 episodes this week. Really good, like you said. Coming up, we got a lot of interesting. Still got the twins in town. We got to learn more about Gustavo, who's this mystery man. We learn more about him. Walter, Skylar, lots going on. But when it comes to your world, Shay, what do you got on the go the rest of the week? Any big plans?
Well, you maybe see a shift in the place, maybe not next week, but the week after, as we're moving to a different home and Quispam. So get a little change of scenery and get out of the John. I know you'll love that. I think we'll be able to get you up a couple more times than you've already been. But other than that, not a ton. If it's going to be nice, I'd like to hit the course at least one more time. And we got Casey's favorite event, the NBA Finals, coming up tomorrow night.
Yes.
So I'll be looking forward to watching more of that and some great ball that's been going on. I probably won't attend this All-Star game. Not
No.
Some All-Star events. I'm like, okay, this is fun, like skill ones. But baseball one just seems basically useless because they're just kind of lobbing it in there for people to hit dingers. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna stray away from that. But no, that's about all for me. What about you? What's on the docket? No sports, but lots of sports news, I guess.
Yeah, lots of sports news today. No sports tonight, so probably maybe try to get like 5 hours of sleep. I know that's like,
Whoa,
I know.
that's
Honestly, I went to bed decently early last night. I was more tired waking up this morning than usually when I get like 3.5 hours. So I was like, well, what the hell is this?
yeah.
But yeah, I might catch up on Sunday night's episode of Big Brother. So might watch that tonight.
How's the season been going so far?
Good. It's a train wreck. So that's good. The HOH so far, he's a lunatic, and he's been lying all over the place. So he's not going to be long for the game, but it makes for good TV. Good stuff there, and yeah, no sports till tomorrow. Like you said, NBA Finals Game 4. Yeah, I didn't watch the Derby last night. Not watching the All-Star game tonight. So
Are you sure
find
that's
something
not on your
else.
docket? I thought I
Yeah,
thought that for you that'd be right up there.
it didn't make the cut, but maybe next year. There's always hope for next year. So
Yeah,
yeah, these
I
couple
gotta
of days are quiet in the world of sports, so it's tough.
exactly. I was thinking this weekend, Sunday rolled around. I'm like, God, I would love to beach it on my couch and watch at least 6 to 8 hours of football, Juggy. And I think the hooks are in because I'm following the news a little bit more, trying to follow moves and who's going where in this. So I think the hooks that you told me about all these years
Mhm.
ago are finally starting to set in. And yeah, no, I miss it and kind of looking forward to it now that hockey's done and obviously basketball will be done here very, very shortly.
Yeah. Training camp's open in less than 2 weeks. Woo! But yeah, Sundays are just it's a great day.
Oh,
It's
beautiful. It's a beautiful time.
yeah, we'll pick a Sunday and we'll couch it. We'll
Sounds
get
good.
some food,
I want to get your thoughts on a new movie, a new M. Night Shyamalan movie that's coming out. Old.
yeah, I've
Me and
seen
Mark
the preview.
yeah. What are your
Um,
thoughts? Is it going to intrigue you? Is that something you'd be into?
I think I'm definitely gonna watch it just because there's been no new movies lately,
Mm,
it's been like a year and a half. I don't know if it'll be my favorite movie. It looks a bit M. Night Shyamalan, but it's not it's not James Cameron, so I'll definitely give it a chance.
right.
But I watched Judas and the Black Messiah lately, and that's a great movie.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of
Really,
good things.
really,
Is
really
that was that
good.
on Netflix or is that on a different
It's on
streaming system?
Crave.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, so I'll be able to watch that. Nice. I've heard like you said, I've heard a lot of really really strong things about that. A couple Oscars headed that, so I'll definitely check that out.
I also want to
Um,
watch The Mayor of Easttown. I haven't watched that yet, but I've heard good things about that show.
Yeah, yeah, me too. Me too. Heard of a lot of my podcasts and movie and show podcasts mention that quite a bit as well.
No, great pod today. Have a good rest of the week, Shay. Get that work grind in so you can hit the links. Hopefully a few times this weekend if there's not snow in St. John.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much, pal.
Now, everybody, thanks for listening. Enjoy the All-Star game if that's what you're into tonight. But we'll be back soon to talk about all the interesting things in the world of sports. And Shamus and myself will be back same time next week. So take care, everybody, and we'll talk soon.